Ellie Chowns.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm really delighted that we're having this debate in the House today. Clean water is a subject very close to my heart as the representative for North Herefordshire, and indeed to the constituents in my area, because the condition of the River Lug, the River Wye, their tributaries, has caused terrible damage to the local ecology and indeed the local economy. And I draw the House's attention to my role as co-chair of the APPGI established on water pollution. These issues are crucial. I want to start with a couple of comments reflecting on the debate we've had thus far, and then go to the 3 points that I want to talk about in my comments today. The honourable member, one of the honourable members said that, we shouldn't do anything in a rush. And I really feel that it's clear that there's nothing in this bill that is a rush. What is set out in this bill is a very considered approach to tackling what is a very complex issue. And there's been some debate today about the potential to use citizens' assemblies as one component of addressing this. And I regret to say that some of the comments and interventions have perhaps been rooted in a misunderstanding or a lack of engagement with the concept of citizens' assemblies. For example, the one that I've referred to that was set up jointly by 6 select committees of this House was held in Birmingham, not London, and partly online. Travel expenses, participation expenses were paid. Full attention is paid to participation. I give way.
On a point of travel, Birmingham is in fact far more difficult to get to from my constituency than London. I don't believe it's the specific geographic place. It's about how do you get people from all corners of the country together to make sure that we have that regional spread.
I thank the honourable member. I warmly invite him to read up about how citizens' assemblies work, about how the sampling works, about how participation is facilitated for all people, about the time commitment. In the case of the one established previously by this House, it was 3 weekends in Birmingham. These are not huge commitments, but they're very valuable mechanisms for ensuring that the public have the time to consider an issue in depth. Now, I want to raise 3 points in my comments today on this very important bill before us. One is I could not agree more with the member for Norwich South that privatisation of water has been an absolute disaster. We have seen soaring bills, soaring executive pay, soaring dividends, soaring siphoning off of finance out of our country into the pockets of private interests, while at the same time our infrastructure has been crumbling, our rivers have been becoming more and more polluted. It is a national disgrace. It's long past time to resolve that. And together with my colleagues in the Green Party, I do believe that public ownership is a core part of the solution. Not the only solution, because we have to ensure that the water system is adequately regulated so that whoever is in charge, they're sticking to the rules. They're not making profits on the back of pollution. They're not pumping sewage into our rivers. That is a fundamental essential. I give way.
Ask Madam Deputy Speaker how the Honourable Lady is proposing to pay then for the running of the water system. We all agree there are problems, but where would she get the money from in the current climate to pay for this to happen?
Ellie Chowns.
I thank the honourable member, and I refer her to my previous comments about the merits of citizens' assemblies to consider the detail of this over a period of many dozens of hours, or indeed to our manifesto. Moving on to my second point, which is about the systemic challenge of climate change, and I'm really glad that some honourable members have mentioned this and that indeed it features in the text of the bill. Because, as the honourable member for Norwich South said, when there is too little water, it's a huge problem. When there's too much water, it's also a huge problem. And this is increasingly a problem. I've spoken a number of times in this House already about flooding in my constituency. Climate change is making these challenges more frequent and more severe. So any bill that tackles issues around water, I think, does need to tackle not just how the water industry, water supply and sewage are addressed, but also how climate change and its interactions with water are addressed. And I'm pleased that this is mentioned within this bill. There's another topic that is mentioned perhaps somewhat briefly within this bill, which is the one that is perhaps even more close to my heart and certainly close to my constituency. And indeed, as I put my hand to my heart, I feel the jewellery that I'm wearing, which represents the River Wye. I wear it close to my heart. Pollution is the elephant in the room, I think, in the way that this issue is being tackled currently. Because pollution comes not just from sewage, it also comes from agricultural runoff. In my constituency, nearly 3/4 of the pollution is from agricultural runoff. For more than 5 years, we've had a planning moratorium across almost all of my constituency with devastating economic effects. Tackling the water industry won't address this. Indeed, the majority of my constituency is served by the only non-profit water company in the UK. The problem we are facing is around pollution, and I do find it disappointing, even distressing, that so far conversation about water in this House has focused rightly on sewage, but not sufficiently on tackling water pollution. Because, as DEFRA figures themselves said, as the Environmental Audit Committee said in its report not so long ago, actually half of the problem is from agricultural water pollution. Slightly more of our waterways are in bad condition because of agricultural pollution rather than sewage pollution. This is an issue that we need to tackle working together in concert with farmers. We need to support farmers, which is why I'm so devastated that the direction has been arguably wrong in recent months. And I'm particularly upset that just a couple of weeks ago, the sustainable farming incentive was taken away from farmers without anything in place to replace it. We need a government that works with farmers, that supports them to transition to nature-friendly farming so that we can reduce that agricultural runoff that is having such a devastating effect on our waterways. And it's vital. Government has this key role to play in leadership. It's essential to tackle the failures of the privatised water industry. It's essential to tackle the outrageous volume of sewage overflows into our rivers, and it's also essential to tackle agricultural water pollution.
Could I take her back to the question of farming pollution? Does she feel that it's too many pesticides being used in farming, or is it too large fields, or is it an inability to have the natural drainage systems restored, such as ditches, which lead to water going into groundwater rather than rushing down and filling and polluting our rivers?
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention, and I hope he would agree with my view, which is that it is a multifaceted problem. It's a different issue in different places. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to this. In my constituency, it's particularly about phosphate pollution. In other places, it's about nitrates. In other places, it's about water volume. I absolutely agree with his earlier comments about the importance of upland water management, natural flood management approaches, ways that we can make sure that we manage water, keep water on the land, address questions of drainage. And indeed, I mentioned this in the debate on the Planning and Infrastructure Bill just the other day. This is crucial. It's vital that the Planning and Infrastructure Bill addresses question of water management as well. We need to treat these things in an integrated and site-specific way. In my constituency of North Herefordshire, I have called for many years now for a water protection zone to ensure that the sources of the pollution are correctly attributed and tackled, and called for more funding and teeth for the Environment Agency to enforce the existing rules which will help to reduce the problem of pollution. So to conclude, I warmly welcome the bill brought to the House today by the Honourable Member for Norwich South. I feel it is a thoughtful, constructive, detailed way of bringing people together to address what we all recognise is a crucial problem. But I say to him, and I say to the Minister, please, let us tackle agricultural water pollution with the same sense of urgency and commitment with which we're addressing sewage. The Water Commission, Sir John Cunliffe's Water Commission, explicitly excludes this from its terms of reference, except insofar as it relates to the water industry. I have read those terms of reference very, very, very carefully. I've spoken to the Water Commission about it. It is not set up to address the problem of agricultural runoff into our rivers. We need the same level of focus on this issue as we do on sewage, because if we want to clean up our rivers, lakes and seas, we need an integrated approach.